Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Shivaya Krishna Vishnaya Buddha Shrimadi Bhakti Vasa Swami Namo Shivaya Krishna Vishnaya Buddha Shrimadi Bhakti Vasa Swami Namo Namaste Saraswati Devi Nirvishesha Srinivadi Pasta Vichakarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare So welcome back to our study of Vedanta Syamantaka. So we have been discussing, just 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have been discussing the second chapter, which is Sarveshwara or Ishvara, and in the last two sessions we have seen the definition of the absolute truth. We saw 5 references that Sri Radha Damodar Goswami gave, and we also saw how he is the supreme controller and other definitions, along with different references from our acharyas, from Srila Prabhupada and from Sri Jiva Goswami and Baldev Vidyabhushan, like that. We also saw that he is unborn, the supreme absolute truth is unborn, but yet he manifests. And one who knows about his appearance and his activities, then it leads one to liberation. Now the question that came up was that Brahma and Rudra are also called lords of the universe. So this is according to the Shabda Pramana, the Shruti, the Vedic literature that we accepted as the perfect Pramana to know the absolute truth. But the same Pramana is also claiming that Lord Brahma and Lord Rudra are also the lords of the universe. So Sri Radha Damodar Goswami, he responds to that. He said, yes, this is true. They are also called the lords of the universe in the Shruti statements, but they are lords according to their capacity only. And just as royalty is also present in the attendance of a king, the lordship found in the demigods like Brahma and Shiva is proved to be secondary, since they are endowed with part of the qualities of the Supreme Lord. So this is what he says. And then to support this particular statement, we saw several references from Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw how these 3 deities, Lord Brahma, Shiva and Lord Vishnu, are actually the Gunavataras of the Lord. And when in general context of Hinduism, people speak about this trinity of gods, they are actually referring to these 3 deities who are controlling the 3 modes of material nature. Lord Brahma is controlling the mode of passion, Lord Vishnu controls the mode of goodness, and Lord Shiva controls the mode of ignorance. And this particular reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, we also saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself manifested the form of Lord Brahma through the material mode of passion in order to create the universe. He manifested his form as Vishnu, as the Lord of sacrifice and protector of the twice born Brahmanas, but he does not come under the influence of the mode of goodness. And the Supreme Lord employs the material mode of ignorance and manifests the form of Rudra. So Lord Vishnu is not contaminated. We also saw that yesterday, that he is transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. So although he is controlling the Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness, but he is not affected by it, or he is not contaminated by it. This verse also proves that the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Lord himself, he manifested the form of Brahma, which basically means that Brahma originated from him. And similarly, the Supreme Lord employs the material mode of ignorance and manifests the form of Rudra, which means Rudra or Lord Shiva also originates from the Supreme Lord. And there is only one Supreme Lord. So we also saw that, and we have been taking this reference from Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram, Tam Devatanam Paramam Cha Devatam. So this we are taking as the basis to understand who that Supreme Personality of Godhead is, and all the other deities especially with respect to Brahma and Shiva we have been discussing now, will also come to the next section. Will speak how all the other demigods also are actually coming from Narayana himself. So taking that the verse from Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it is actually the guiding factor for us to understand how the different deities or controllers of the universe are manifested, are originated, and how above all of them is one supreme deity, and he is identified with the Brahman, which is explained in the Upanishads, and all the qualities of Brahman also, which are explained in the Upanishads. So we saw this reference yesterday. So today we are going to see the specific statements which are there in the Vedic scriptures, in Puranas, in Upanishads also, where where it's mentioned that there's actually no difference between Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu. And we'll also see that there are other ways in which, there are several ways in which Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, they refute that particular argument. Like Samanvaya has to be done, harmonization has to be done, because superficially reading these texts, it might seem that they are contradictory in those who follow Vedic culture, those who follow or claim themselves to be part of this Hindu religion. It's always there that the understanding or the misconception they have is that the Puranas are confusing, because in some places one particular deity is glorified as a Supreme Lord, in other places, other Puranas, other deities glorified Supreme Lord, and similarly there are other places also where somebody else is glorified. So how to harmonize this? There is one impersonal Brahman and he manifests in many different forms. So they will use this statement, Ajayamana Bahuda Vijayate, and they interpret it in such a way. We saw that text yesterday. The proper interpretation is that one Supreme Lord manifests his multiple forms, but then all these forms are transcendental, correct? And we also saw that one Supreme Lord, he takes birth in many different ways, and we also saw the reference from Bhagavad Sandarbha that Jiva Goswami quotes. But how they understand this particular text, Ajayamano Bahuta Vijayate, is that one Brahman who is unborn actually takes birth as multifarious demigods. So Bahuda Vijayate, he appears in different as different demigods, and so that is why it has to be understood. So Hinduism means it is pantheism, that one entity, that one impersonal Brahman entity, he takes multiple forms. But that is not so. That is not how it should be understood. So there are several references from the Vedic scriptures. We'll be going through them one by one, and we'll see what conclusion we arrive at. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Trayanam eka bhavanam yona pashyati vaibhidam sarva bhutatmanam brahman sashantim adhikachati. The person who does not see difference between the three of us, Brahma, Shiva and myself, Vishnu, the souls of all being who have one nature, attains peace. Means one should not see difference between these three, right? Then nate mayachute jecha bidam anvapi chakshate. They do not perceive even slight difference. There is not even slight difference between me, Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. This is again from Srimad Bhagavatam. In other Puranas, it is described that if one sees Brahma or Shiva as distinct from Vishnu, he goes to Naraka, the destination of wrongdoers after death. This is Srila Jiva Goswami writing in his Paramatma Sandarbha. Then this is from Harivamsha. Yo vai Vishnu savai rudro, yo rudra sapitamaha. Eka murtis trayo deva, rudra Vishnu pitamaha. Varada aloka kartaro, lokanatha swayambhuvaha, ardhanarishwarastetu vritam tibram samasthitaha. Vishnu is Shiva and Shiva is Brahma. The three divinities, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, are actually one body. They are the self-manifest creators and masters of the world and its benefactors. These lords have their feminine counterparts and are always engaged in severe religious vows. Right. So this is like just the initial part of it. As we go further, there are so many other references also which actually claim that Shiva is supreme. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. So the reply is there in Prabhupada's purport. So because it's Srimad Bhagavatam, we can directly see what Prabhupada writes about it. So Srila Prabhupada clarifies, he says, two words are very significant in this verse. So it's the response. Trayanam indicates three. namely Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. Bhidam means different. They are three and therefore they are separate. But at the same time, they are one, according to the translation, the verse itself. This is the philosophy of simultaneous oneness and difference, which is called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The example given in the Brahma Samhita is that milk and yogurt are simultaneously one and different. Both are milk, but the yogurt has become changed. In order to achieve real peace, one should see everything and every living entity, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, as non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then here is the master stroke. No one is independent. Every one of us is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This accounts for unity in diversity. There are diverse manifestations, but at the same time, they are one in Vishnu. Everything is an expansion of Vishnu's energy. So in that sense, Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu are actually not different. And in that sense, if we extend this understanding, even the living entities are not different from the Lord. But at the same time, there is difference as well. This is Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. And the main point here is that no one is independent. So because everybody is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so therefore, they are non-different from Him in that sense. So they are not independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are not independent deities. They are not like independent and then one should see equality amongst them. No, they are dependent on the Supreme Lord, and because they are also manifestation of the Lord's potency, therefore they should be seen on an equal level. Okay, that is proper understanding. In the purport Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 10, Text 22, it's mentioned, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are respectively manifestations of the creating and annihilating potencies of the personality of Godhead Vishnu. Thus, unity exists among these three ruling deities of the material world. One should not, on the basis of the modes of nature, find material duality within the ruling potency of the Supreme Lord, although that potency is manifested in three divisions as Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Correct. And even in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Everything is Vasudeva only. He is everywhere. So now that when we take that into picture, then all the different manifestations of his energy and the demigods also are actually non-different from him, but still he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So again, coming back to our reference to Shvetashvara Upanishad, although equality is mentioned at several places in the scriptures, but still Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. There is one Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tam Devatanam Paramam Cha Devatam. There is one who is supreme amongst all other deities also. Right? And Srila Jiva Goswami gives further references. So in Vamana Purana it is mentioned, Brahma Vishnuvisha Rupani Trini Vishnuvar Mahatmanaha Brahmani Brahma Rupasa Shiva Rupa Shive Sthitaha Prithak Eva Sthito Devo Vishnu Rupi Janardanaha. Brahma, Vishnu and Isha are three forms of the Supreme Soul Vishnu. Right? This Supreme Soul here refers to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So, when we speak about the Purusha incarnations of the Lord, there are three. We have Mahavishnu or Karanodakshaya Vishnu, then there is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and there is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So, Mahavishnu or Karanodakshaya Vishnu is also the Paramatma, but is Paramatma of the entire material manifestation, the entire material energy. Then, when the universes come from the pores of Mahavishnu, then Mahavishnu expands himself and then he enters into each of these universes as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu becomes the super soul of that particular universe. So if there are thousands and millions of universes, each universe has Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and he acts as the Paramatma or the super soul for each one of these universes. And once the creation happens, from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's navel, Lord Brahma appears. And then after that the entire creation process happens and the 14 planetary systems are manifested and all. Then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's expansion as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, he enters into each one of the atoms and he becomes Paramatma for each of the living entities and for the entire manifested creation. So when we speak about the Purusha avatars, we are speaking about three Paramatmas. All three are called Paramatma, but they are Paramatma of different entities. One is Paramatma of the entire material cosmic manifestation, one is for one particular universe, and the last, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, is for each and every atom within the heart of each and every living entity. So when we speak about the Guna avatars Brahma, Vishnu and Isha or Shiva are three forms of the Supreme Soul Vishnu. Here it refers to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. because the Gunavataras actually originate from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, whereas in Shastra it is mentioned that the other Leela Avataras who come into this material world, they come through Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he manifests the Guna Avataras. And the way it's like before the entire creation can be manifested, or the gross creation, the planetary systems can be manifested, can be seen, or can be created by Lord Brahma, there is a subtle prototype that has to be made. Okay, so Garbhodakshaya Vishnu accomplishes that also. And before that, because the modes of material nature only interact amongst themselves to create the sense objects, the senses, and also the gross material elements. So all these things are manifested from the three modes of material nature. So before that itself, before all this manifestation happens of the senses, the sense objects, the gross elements, the Guna Avataras must be there. Right? Lord Shiva must be there, Vishnu must be there, and Brahma must be there. So before the creation happens, before even the senses are manifested, before the sense objects are manifested. Senses means our knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. Sense objects are the sound, form, touch, vision, and then smell. These are our sense objects, and their gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And our senses are our knowledge acquiring senses, our eyes, ears. So all this, before the manifestation of all these things, these three deities should be present. So therefore, they are manifested by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu himself, who creates that prototype for this universe. So this is also one of the reasons why people think that before anything existed, the three deities, they existed. So therefore, they are all on the same level. But then again, as we discussed yesterday, we have to go back further. We have to refer to other statements from the scriptures also, which actually say that they originate from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. They are not independent in themselves. They are actually dependent on Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Right? So the Supreme Soul here actually refers to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Lord Janardhan situates his Brahma form in Lord Brahma and his Shiva form in Lord Shiva. The same Supreme Lord, however, remains himself in his Vishnu form. So this is supporting the statement that we discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So same Lord Vishnu, he although is controlling the Sattva Guna, but he does not take the form of Sattva Guna, or he is not influenced by Sattva Guna. He always remains transcendental, and the activities that he performs within this material world as the controller of Sattva Guna also are to be categorized as his Leela only, because they are transcendental, they are transcendental pastimes. Similarly, while accepting that the three, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, are different, only the avatar of Vishnu, Sri Dattatreya, was counted in the list of avatars of Bhagavan and not those of Brahma, Soma or Shiva, Durvasa. So in the third chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this Krishna is the source of all incarnation, that chapter comes. And in that chapter, if Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva are the same, then their incarnations also should have been mentioned. But although these three, Dattatreya, Soma and Durvasa, were born of the same parents, but still Dattatreya is classified as the avatar of Bhagavan, whereas Soma and Durvasa are actually not mentioned there. So this is Jiva Goswami's point. He is saying, so therefore it is proved that when we are speaking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only Dattatreya is being classified as an avatar of Bhagavan, but not Soma and Durvasa, although all three of them are born of the same parents. So therefore, Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Brahma speaks, Naham Shivo na Chanyecha Tachaktekam Shabhaginaha Bala Kridanakair Yadvat Kridate Smabhir Achyutaha. I and Shiva are not supreme. We are portions of Vishnu's Shakti. The Lord plays with us like toys. This Brahma himself accepting. In Shruti also it is said, Yam Kamaye Tam Ugram Krinomi Tam Brahmanam Tam Rishim Tam Sumedham. I make whomever I desire into Shiva. I make whomever I desire into Brahma or a sage. Which basically is saying that he is the one who decides who should become Shiva and who should become Brahma. And we also understand that Brahma in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Rupa Goswami writes that Brahma is generally a living entity, it's a jiva, a soul like us, but then when there's no living entity who's qualified to take up the post of Brahma, then the Supreme Lord himself becomes Vishnu. And with respect to Shiva also, the Rudras are classified, or Rudras can be one of the living entities themselves. This also Srila Prabhupada writes in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and when there is no one to take the position, or no living entity qualified enough to become Rudra, then through Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu himself manifests as Rudra. So that is also there. So he can decide who should become Shiva, who should become Rudra, who should become Brahma. So the Supreme Lord can decide all that. Elsewhere it is said, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivataihi Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhave Dhruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayana is to be considered an offender or Pashandi. Padma Puran, Uttarakhand. So in one statement, we are seeing that one who does not consider them as equal, he is eligible to go to Naraka. He should go to hellish situation. But here it is said that one who sees them on the same level, then he should be considered an offender or Pashandi. So what to do? Contradictory statements. So harmonization has to be required. We have to see the other statements also in the Vedic literatures, and one should learn this in the Parampara system. That way clarification is attained. Right? Then Madhye Vamanam Asinam Vishve Deva Upasate. Sri Vamanadeva is sitting amongst all the demigods who are worshipping him. This is from Kathopanishad 2-3. Now in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he elaborates on this more, gives more references. So this is the text. Eimate Krishna Maharaj Rajeshwara Karta Harta Brahma Shiva Yahara Kinkara. In the same way, Krishna is the king of kings, while Brahma and Shiva, the creator and annihilator, are his servants. And he gives reference from Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And he says, Brahmadyo yat krita setupala yat karanam vishvam idam chamaya agnya kari yasya pishachacharya aho vibhumnas charitam vidambanam. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of the material energy which causes the creation of the material world. He is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. In his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Madhvacharya has stated, Swamitvam tu harereva mukhyam anyatra bhrityata. Lord Sri Hari is the supreme controller and all others are his servants. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Aham bhavo daksha bhrugu pradhanaha prajesha bhutesha suresha mukhyāha sarve vayam yan niyamam prapanna murdhyarpitam lokahitam bahamaha. Such personalities as me and Lord Shiva, as well as Daksha, Bhrigu and similar great saints, of which they are the head, and also the rulers of the living entities, the rulers of human society, and the rulers of the demigods, all of us surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, bowing our heads to carry out his orders for the benefit of all living entities. In his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 6, Madhvacharya quotes the following Vedic statement. Sahi sarvadipati sarvapalaha sa ishaha sa vishnuhu patihi vishwasyatmeshwaraha. That Lord Vishnu is the master of everyone, including Brahma and Shiva. He is the maintainer of everyone. He is the controller of everyone. He is the protector of everyone. He is worshipable to everyone, and he is the director of everyone. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya. Lord Krishna alone is the supreme controller, and all others are his servants. In his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Madhvacharya has stated, this from 11th canto, Tadvasha itare sarve Shri Brahmesha Purassaraha. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all demigods, including Brahma and Shankara, are his subordinate servants. So at some places, it is mentioned that Brahma and Shiva are equal to the Lord, but then it is to be understood properly. And at so many other places, it is mentioned that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 17, Text 22 and 23. The translation goes, from that Supreme Personality of Godhead appears Lord Brahma, whose body is made from the total material energy, the reservoir of intelligence predominated by the passionate mode of material nature. From Lord Brahma, I myself am born as a representation of false ego known as Rudra. By my own power, I create all the other demigods, the 5 elements and the senses. Therefore, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than any one of us, and under whose control are situated all the demigods, material elements and senses, and even Lord Brahma and I myself, like birds bound by a rope. Only by the Lord's grace can we create, maintain, and annihilate the material world. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Being. Okay, so certain points we have to understand from this is that from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Brahma appears, okay, whose body is made up of the total material energy, the reservoir of intelligence predominated by the passionate mode of material nature. And then he says that I myself, the Lord says, I myself am born as a representation of false ego known as Rudra. By my power, I create all the other demigods, the five elements, and the senses. So, Krishna is saying that. And one thing we can also understand is that Rudra being the sometimes Shiva is called the master of this universe, and it's actually correct to an extent because we discussed the senses, the sense objects, and the material elements. They actually are created or they originate from the sum total of material energy, but the sum total of material energy from that to come to this point of the senses, sense objects, and the material elements, the false ego must be there. So that is the starting point, like that's the starting of an ignition, igniting the car. So it's like that, that's when it starts. And because that false ego is being controlled by Lord Shiva, so therefore at some places in the scriptures it's mentioned that all the demigods are created by Shiva, the senses are created by Shiva, the sense objects, the material elements, they are all manifested from Rudra only. And the reason for that is because Rudra or Shiva, he is controlling the false ego from which everything originates. It's the starting point. So again, it comes back to the same point that the three Gunavataras are there, but then we have to go beyond that. We have to see whose energy is this material energy. The manifestation of material energy, definitely, we can say that it's being controlled by Lord Shiva. In that sense, he is actually the master of the entire universe. But above him also, there is one supreme controller, one who controls Lord Shiva, one who has given him the jurisdiction of controlling the false ego. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one has to go beyond, one has to go further than just the understanding that this material universe is created by Lord Shiva or Rudra, but then there's someone above him also, right? And so therefore I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is Lord Shiva speaking, and this is why he's saying, by my own power, I myself am born as a representation of false ego known as Rudra. So he's saying that I am Rudra. By my own power, I create all the other demigods, the five elements, and the senses. So that is how it is to be understood. That he being the controller of the false ego, and because false ego ultimately manifests all these three, in one sense we can say that it is Lord Shiva himself who is creating the bodies of the demigods, the five elements, and the senses also. But then Lord Shiva himself is originating from Lord Vishnu himself. So that again there are references that we will see. So although he is doing all this, he still says, therefore I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than any one of us and under whose control are situated all the demigods, material elements and senses, and even Lord Brahma and I myself like birds bound by a rope. So although I as Rudra create all the demigods, the five elements and the senses, looks like the entire material manifestation is created by me, but then there is one who is greater than any one of us and under whose control are situated all the demigods. So again, Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram, Tam Devatanam Paramam Cha Devatam. So now that's like a defining factor for all the scriptures are basically substantiating this fact which is established in the Upanishad. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives a summary of creation. So, and he says from Shankarshana, Mahavishnu expands, and from Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu expands. Lord Brahma, who was born of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, fathers Lord Shiva, and from whom all the other demigods gradually evolve. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu are incarnations of the different material qualities. Lord Vishnu is actually above all material qualities, but he accepts control of Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness, to maintain the universe. Lord Brahma is born from the Mahatattva. Brahma creates the entire universe. Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva annihilates it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls all the most important demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Shiva, exactly as the owner of a bird controls it by binding it with a rope. Sometimes vultures are controlled in this way. So comment he makes. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami, he quotes from Skanda Purana. This he speaks about this in Paramatma Sandarbha. He says, Bhagavan Hari is alone the creator, sustainer and destroyer. I think sustainer should come here. Whatever creatorship is present in others is said to be like the movements of a puppet. In others, these functions are effective only in part, but not in full. The complete functions of creation and so on are enacted only by Vishnu. Correct? Lord Brahma can only create, he cannot destroy. Lord Shiva can only destroy, he cannot create. And the reference comes in Srimad Bhagavatam also. Lord Brahma, he generated Rudra from his forehead. Then what happens? He said, you create progeny. And Shiva, Rudra created progeny, and that progeny started destroying the 14 planetary systems. Then he said, you stop. You better go do some tapasya or meditate. I'll make sure that creation happens. You don't have to worry about it. So Rudra cannot create. Brahma cannot destroy. But one who maintains, he does all three. He can maintain, he can create also, and he can destroy also. Right? So that also we have seen in Srimad Bhagavatam in different Puranas. Comes like that. So therefore, the entire potency remains with Lord Vishnu, but creation is only given. The creation aspect is kind of delegated to Brahma, the destruction aspect is delegated to Rudra. So in that sense, because they carry the potency of the Lord, they perform his order, they perform his duty, so therefore they can be called as equal with respect to material creation, but Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord himself. Now this is Lord Shiva saying to Krishna in the Harivamsha. This is quote by Baldev Vidyabhushan, his commentary to Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 1. Ka means Brahma and Isha refers to me, the Lord of all embodied beings. Correct? So at multiple places we'll see that Shiva is called as the Lord of all embodied beings. He is the master of all the created beings within this material world. But both of us arise from your body, therefore you are called Keshava. Ke or Ka is Brahma, Isha is Shiva, and Va means they come from him or they are being controlled by him. So Keshava means one who is the originator or the master of Brahma and Lord Shiva. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 7, Text 22, when the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that He is the father of all living entities, Aham Bija Pradah Pita, this refers to actions performed by Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva. Right? When Lord Shiva is called as the master of this universe, and in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham Bija Pradah Pita, he is basically performing these actions of being the father of the entire universe, of all the creation with this material universe through Lord Shiva. So the potency comes from Lord Vishnu only, but the activity is being carried out by Lord Shiva. Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities, and when material activities are to be performed, Lord Vishnu performs them through Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is therefore worshipped on the level of Lord Vishnu. Right? When Lord Vishnu is untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he is in touch with the external energy, he appears in his feature as Lord Shiva. So Lord Vishnu is always transcendental. He never comes in contact with the material energy. But when he appears, when he has to perform activities with the external energy, he has to work with it, so to speak, get his hands dirty, then he manifests the form of Lord Shiva to do that particular activity. Okay. So next section, Srila Radha Damodar Goswami, he says, all the demigods originate from Lord Narayana. It is heard from the Narayana Upanishad that Brahma and other demigods are born from Lord Hari. Therein it is first said, Atha Purusho Havai Narayano Kamyata Praja Srijeya. The Supreme Person Narayana desired, let me create progeny. Subsequently, it is stated, the same, I think it's Mahanarayana Upanishad. Subsequently, it is stated, Narayanad Brahma Jayate, Narayanad Rudro Jayate, Narayanad Prajapatihi Prajayate, Narayanad Indro Jayate, Narayanad Ashto Vasavo Jayante, Narayanad Ekadasha Rudra Jayante, Narayanad Dwadashadityaha. From Narayana was born Brahma, from Narayana was born Shiva. From Narayana were born the Prajapatis, from Narayana was born Indra, from Narayana were born the 8 Vasus, from Narayana were born the 11 Rudras, from Narayana were born the 12 Adityas. In Shruti, it's mentioned in the Yajurveda, it said, Agni Sarva Devataha. Fire is all the demigods. Okay, so that is again a contradiction that comes. But the conclusion is there in Purusha Sukta. It is said, Chandrama Manaso Dachas Jatash Chaksho Surya Vajayata Shrotrad Vayuscha Pranascha Mukhad Agnir Ajayata. The moon was born from the mind of the Supreme Person. The sun was born from his eyes. The wind and the air were born from his ears. And fire was born from his mouth. So Agni can represent all the demigods. So when Yajurveda says Agni Sarva Devataha, basically means that when fire sacrifice is being performed, all the ahutis for the demigods are also given to the fire, correct? When we do swaha, when we do the ahuti, so all the offerings are given to Agni, and from Agni all the offerings are being shared by different demigods. So this is what it means when it says that Agni Sarva Devataha, that fire is all the demigods. That does not mean that fire, all the demigods are originating from Agni. All the demigods are maintained through the agency of Agni when yagyas are performed. And we also discussed all these 4 Vedas. They are actually speaking about different mantras and all the sacrifices which are there as the Karma Kandiya portion of the Vedic literatures. So these kind of statements will be seen. These kind of statements will also be seen in other scriptures where Indra is glorified like this, Chandra is glorified like this. But then we have to see the context, in which context they are being glorified and why they are glorified like that. Because the demigods are also not independent from each other. They are cooperating with each other. Just like in this material world, we have this Varnashrama system. So the 4 Varnas have their different qualities. Brahmanas are different. They have different qualifications, different qualities. Kshatriyas have different qualities, qualifications. There are Vaishyas, there are Shudras. Then there are 4 Ashramas also. Each of these 8 sections, 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas have different duties. But for the upkeep of the society, all these Varnas and Ashramas, they work together. Correct, as one complete whole, correct, and then at whatever level one person is, by performing the duties of Varna and Ashrama, one renders devotional service unto the Lord. So this concept, although the Varna and Ashrama concept may not be there in the heavenly planets, but the demigods also cooperate amongst themselves to maintain the universal order. So for specific functions which they perform, Chandra has a specific duty that he has to perform. Then Vayu is the one who's coordinating all the life air within this universe. Then there is Agni, who is the representative, or he is the controller of all the Agni within this universe. And Indra controls rain, Varuna controls the waters. So each of these different demigods are representatives of different elements within this material nature, and they are actually the Adipati or the controllers of that. Correct? But they have to cooperate among themselves to maintain the universal order. And who wants them to maintain that universal order? It is Lord Vishnu himself. Being the maintainer, the incarnation of, or rather, the one who controls the maintenance aspect, all the demigods are engaged in maintaining the universe under him. Correct? So each of the demigod, because they are performing different functions for the maintenance of the universe, for the administration of the universe, in different Vedic scriptures, it is glorified that they are doing this great activity. So therefore, they are representing all the demigods. They are supermost of all the demigods, because other demigods do not have the jurisdiction to, like Agni will not be able to do the work of fire, Agni will not be able to do the work of Vayu. Correct? So then wherever a particular section comes where Vayu's importance has to be glorified, then he said, he is such a thing that no other demigod can do work like him. He is therefore, he is supreme, he is greater than everybody else. So like that those statements come. But the understanding is that they are all cooperating amongst themselves to serve Lord Vishnu in his aspect of maintenance. Right? Chalo, we'll move ahead. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Name vidu suragana prabhavam na maharshayah aham adir hi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashah. So neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and the sages. Correct? So again, this is the reference. These are references. The one in brown are references which I have added from different quotations from scriptures and our acharyas. The one in this blue is actually the text of Vedanta Syamantaka itself. Then in Bhagavad Gita 7.7, Vataf paratarmnanyat kichidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Right? There is no truth superior to me. He is the one who is originating everything. Very directly. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. And the purport to this particular text, Srila Prabhupada quotes the same reference, the same point which Srila Radha Damodar Goswami has quoted here, Narayana Brahma Vijayate, and that on. He quotes all that and gives several references also. And again, this purport is actually directly manifested or created by Srila Prabhupada from Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary, because Baldev Vidyabhushan also uses the same references for this particular verse. Then this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 38. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. So this is that section where the creation is mentioned, and that how the different demigods are being manifested is also mentioned for corresponding physical elements. And then it comes that controlling deities of all these above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. So because Lord Vishnu has invested his potency on these demigods, therefore they are able to control these physical elements. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties but were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. So although they are entrusted with different duties, unless and until the Supreme Lord empowers them, they will not be able to perform that. The conception of various controlling demigods who inhabit the higher planetary systems for the management of universal affairs is not imaginary, as proposed by persons with a poor fund of knowledge. The demigods are expanded parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and they are embodied by time, the external energy, and partial consciousness of the Supreme. So this way, when they are embodied by the partial consciousness of the Supreme, they are one with his goal, or what Lord Vishnu wants to achieve within his material creation. They become aligned to that because partial consciousness of the Supreme is invested in them. So therefore they do not transgress the duties that they are supposed to perform. The demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. They are all great devotees of the Lord, entrusted to execute certain functions of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraj for his thankless task of punishing sinful souls, but Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputy demigods, who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respects on account of the responsible positions to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish persons accept the demigods as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they are all appointed as servants of Vishnu. Then Yamaraj, he is speaking to the Yamadutas. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 12. He says, when Yamaraj is asked, the Yamadutas ask, they are bewildered by the presence of Vishnu Duta. This is Ajamila's pastime. So when the Yamadutas go to Yamaraj and asks, we thought you are controlling all the living entities, but is there supreme control? Is the control above you also? So Yamaraj responds to that. He says, my dear servants, you have accepted me as the supreme, but factually I am not. Above me and above all the other demigods, including Indra and Chandra, is the one supreme master and controller. The partial manifestations of his personality are Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, who are in charge of the creation, maintenance and annihilation of this universe. He is like the two threads that form the length and breadth of a woven cloth. The entire world is controlled by him, just as a bull is controlled by a rope in its nose. So the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the order carriers of Yamaraj suspected that there was a ruler even above Yamaraj. To eradicate their doubts, Yamaraj immediately replied, yes, there is one supreme controller above everything. Yamaraj is in charge of some of the moving living entities, namely the human beings, but the animals who also move are not under his control. Only human beings have consciousness of right and wrong, and among them only those who perform sinful activities come under the control of Yamaraj. Therefore, although Yamaraj is a controller, he is only departmental control of a few living entities. Means those living entities who fall into this category of human species, and also those who have performed sinful activities. There are other demigods who control many other departments, but above them all is one supreme controller, Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. The supreme controller is Krishna. Others who control their own departments in the affairs of the universe are insignificant in comparison to Krishna, the supreme controller, because they control only one aspect of the creation. They are not supreme controller, because supreme controller means one who controls everything. But the demigods control only one specific aspect. We have never heard in Shastra that Indra is controlling Agni, or Indra is controlling fire, or Indra is manipulating fire, is creating fire, is doing something with fire, or he is the source of the offerings that are given into Agni for all the demigods. We don't see representatives like that. We don't see explanations like that. Similarly, for all the demigods also, they control a specific portion, a specific aspect of the creation, but they are not the supreme controller. Even when it comes to Lord Brahma and Shiva, Brahma is only meant for creation, Lord Shiva only for destruction. But one who controls, who can do everything on his own, or who is the supreme controller, is Krishna himself. Srila Prabhupada continues. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mattaf parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. My dear Dhananjaya, Arjun, no one is superior to me. Therefore, Yamaraj immediately cleared away the doubts of his assistants, the Yamadutas, by confirming that there is a supreme controller above all others. Srila Madhvacharya explains that the word Otam Protam refers to the cause of all causes. You will see this verse, this comes here. Otam Protam Patavad Yatra Vishwam. So Otam Protam is the length and breadth of a woven cloth. So that he refers to, he explains it as cause of all causes. Now Srila Radha Goswami, he continues and he quotes from the Maha Upanishad. And he says, it is also said in the beginning, Eko Havai Narayana Asin, Na Brahma, Na Ishanaha. Only Lord Narayana existed, not Brahma nor Rudra. Afterwards, it is declared, Tasya Dhyanantaha Sthasya Lalatat Triyakshaha Shulapanihi Purusho Jayata Vibrachriyam Satyam Brahmacharyam Tapo Vairagyam. From the forehead of Lord Narayana, who was absorbed within himself in meditation, was born a person with 3 eyes, holding a trident and possessing splendor, truthfulness, celibacy, austerity and detachment. Also subsequently, Tatra Brahma Chaturmukho Jayata. From Narayana was born the 4-faced Brahma. Now, there are multiple explanations of this. Like here we see from Lord Narayana, Lord Shiva himself with 3 eyes and holding a trident is born. So this refers to Lord Shiva. So this, it's understood that in different kalpas, Shiva within this material world manifests through different ways. In one kalpa, he manifests through the forehead of Lord Brahma, and another kalpa, he manifests through Lord Narayana himself. So from Padma Purana, this is quoted in Siddhanta Ratnam, Harir eva sadaradhya sarva deveshwareshwaraha itare brahma rudradhya navagneya kadachana. Only Lord Hari is the god of all demigods and is always to be worshipped. But others like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva should never be disrespected. So we also saw that in Prabhupada's purport. Now, Srila Radha Damodar Goswami, he brings about a technical point here. Okay, and he says Narayana is a noun, not like the names of Shiva and Brahma. So we are putting forth several arguments that Shiva and Brahma are actually not on the same level as Narayana. So this will continue. I think I have another 20-30 pages of notes with the same thing, and Srila Radha Damodar Goswami also gives several references for that. So this he takes from Panini's Sutra. I will read this. The word Narayana is indeed a noun that belongs only to the husband of goddess Lakshmi due to the employment of Natva, as stated by Panini Ashtadhyayi 843, Purva Padat Samnyayam Agaha. Due to a particular cause in the preceding word, a subsequent na in a name changes into na, but not if there is a letter ga intervening. So this is how it's to be understood. Okay, what are we speaking about here? Now, this in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada is there in the verse itself, and Srila Prabhupada also explains. We will see those references as we go down. That Narayana is actually made up of 2 words. It's Nara or Nara and Ayana, or Nara and Ayana. Okay, it's made up of these 2 words. So in Sanskrit, there is something called a samasa, where 2 pada, 2 different words of different meanings actually come together and then they form a word. Okay, so that is called a samasa. It is actually not sandhi, but it is samasa. Now this particular rule, what happens is, now Nara has a particular meaning. Okay, it has a particular meaning, and Ayana has a specific meaning. But when these two come together, it actually creates a proper name. It creates a Sangya. In Sanskrit, the name is called a Sangya. It creates a Sangya. And only this particular rule of Panini, Purva Pada Samyayam Agaha, this is applicable only when a Sangya comes into place. So what is happening is, although the first word is Nara, the second word is Ayana, it is not Ayana, but when these two combine together, then it does not become Narayana, it becomes Narayana. The Na becomes Na, and that basically refers that when these two words, which are actually not referring to a single person, Nara does not refer to a single person, Ayana does not refer to a single person, but when they come together and they becomes a samasa, this Narayana word comes, this sutra is being applied here, and the Na, Narayana, becomes Narayana. So this Na, the last Na, becomes Na, because this sutra is applicable only to a noun, a Sangya, which refers to a person. I hope I'm clear. It's technical. Okay. The point that he's trying to make here is that because this sutra is being applied to that particular word, Narayana is actually a proper noun. It's a Sangya which actually refers to a person. It cannot be used as an adjective or as a common noun. The way Shiva can be used as an adjective, we also know Shiva means one who is auspicious. Correct? Brahma means one who is great or one who creates. There are no, according to what is it called? Nirukti. I think it's called Nirukti. According to Nirukti statements, there are different etymological meanings of different words. But for Narayana, it refers only to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. There is no other etymological meaning. But for Shiva, there are different meanings. It can mean auspicious. And for Rudra also, we will see the one who cries is called Rudra. Brahma is called Brahma because he's great. He's the one who creates. So like that, there are derivatives which are there for these words. But for the word Narayana, it can refer only to one person. It can only refer to a person which is a Sangya, and because these two words, two unrelated words, Nara and Ayana, have come together and they have made a word called Narayana, and because Panini's Sutra is applicable to this particular place, Narayana becomes Narayana, it actually means that Narayana is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not Lord Shiva or Brahma, because this Sutra is not applicable at any other place for the other deities where it is applicable for Narayana. So it's like an indirect way of saying that Narayana is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are not directly seeing the statements here. He's saying that because Panini's Sutra is applicable in that particular place, so therefore, and Narayana has become Narayana, therefore Narayana is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, I hope it made a little sense, but we'll go ahead. Okay, so now, okay, one more thing before we go is, see, another aspect is, if we see, we are talking about Vedanta Syamantaka here, right? We are discussing Vedanta Syamantaka, and Vedanta, when we speak of Vedanta, the one point that comes in mind is about the Vedanta Sampradayas. Vedanta means commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. So we know about the commentary by Shankaracharya. He wrote his Sharirika Bhashya. We know the commentary by our four Acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya. So in the present situation, in the present world, if we see, generally speaking, you can say these are the 5 Sampradayas, of which the 4 are the authentic Sampradayas, and the one which claim to be a Sampradaya, which is following Vedanta, Shankaracharya's Sampradaya. We also saw that Shankaracharya's Sampradaya actually originated from Vishnu Swami Sampradaya only. We saw that reference from Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati writes that. So if we see the goal or the final conclusion which each of them arrive at, 4 of them come to the conclusion, which is Ramanujacharya, Madhvas, then Vishnu Swami and Nimbarka, these 4 paramparas. They have the conclusion that the living entity is eternally servant of the Lord, Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are supposed to render devotional service unto him. Now, philosophically speaking, there might be some nuances which are different based upon the primary scriptures or the scriptures which they take as most prominent. So, there is a difference between our philosophy and say, for example, Sri Vaishnavism, because for them their primary pramana is Vishnu Purana. Okay, they take Vishnu Purana as primary. We take Srimad Bhagavatam as primary. So there might be subtle differences in philosophical understanding, but as we have also seen that a Vedic thing or one particular verse can be understood in many different ways. Right? We saw that reference also. So that is why we also saw that Acharyas also have different commentaries on the same verses. So similarly, the scriptures are unified in whole in the sense that they establish that Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entities are his eternal servant, and they are supposed to render devotional service unto him. So all the four paramparas, they actually agree to this particular point. But philosophically, there might be some differences and nuances, which we don't have to dwell into much because the conclusion is perfect. But then when it comes to the Advaitavad, the parampara of Shankaracharya or Mayavad, there it's completely different. They do not claim that Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. They do not claim the Jivas are eternal servants of the Lord. We have to render devotional service and all. According to them, it is impersonal Brahman. We have discussed that before also. According to them, it's impersonal Brahman and one has to merge into that. If merge into that offends them, then they say we become one with Brahman. So that also they say. And we see here, actually speaking, when we speak of Vedanta, only Vishnu's superiority has been established by the four sampradayas, and in Shankaracharya's sampradaya, actually the superiority of none of the deities have been established properly. It's actually a mystery why the followers of Shankaracharya actually say Shiva is supreme, because that is actually against their own sampradaya. Because when we say everything is impersonal and the deities are actually manifestation of the material modes, then you cannot claim that one deity is superior to another deity. So one cannot say that, in Advaita Mayavad Sampradaya, Shiva is supreme. That is actually against their philosophy. They are actually refuting their own process. They are refuting their own understanding of the philosophy. One cannot claim Shiva as supreme in Advaitavad at all. Because according to Advaitavad or Mayavad, it's impersonal Brahman who is supreme. And that impersonal Brahman, of course, is a misconceived understanding, can manifest in multiple forms or multiple ways. So how can we say that the same Brahman who manifests in multiple ways, one is superior and another is inferior? Which means there is a quote or there is a problem in their Vedantic understanding if they claim like that. But if we see, most of the followers of Advaitavad, Mayavad, Shankaracharya's followers, they claim, no, Vishnu is not, Shiva is supreme. How Shiva is supreme? You are defeating your own philosophy. Shiva cannot be claimed as supreme that way, right? Because he is just a manifestation of the impersonal Brahman. Of course, they might say that Shankaracharya is an incarnation of Shiva, so we are inclined towards him. That means that you are not situated in Brahman, which basically means that you are not situated in Brahman because you are also seeing what is favorable to me, what is unfavorable to me according to the modes of material nature. Because form arises from the modes. Form arises from, it's an illusion according to their philosophy. So form is an illusion, and if you give some preference to a form, one form of illusion you are giving a preference to, and another form of illusion you are not giving preference to, you are claiming one form of illusion is supreme and another form of illusion is not supreme, it's craziness actually according to their philosophy. So according to Vedanta scriptures, the four sampradayas establish Lord Vishnu as supreme, and those who say or who claim Shiva as supreme actually have no standing in Vedanta at all. So when we speak about Vedanta, what is Vedanta? It's a conclusion of the Upanishads. It's a conclusion of all the study of Vedic literatures, right? This is what we have discussed from the start. So there, in none of these Vedantic scriptures, we will find that Shiva is established as a Supreme Lord. Whereas in four Vedanta Sampradayas, it's established that Lord Vishnu is Supreme. And those Shankaracharya followers who are claiming Vishnu as Supreme, they're actually defeating or going against their own understanding of Vedanta. So it has no standing at all. So when people say that Shiva and Vishnu is supreme, there is no standing. No standing in the Vedantic philosophy. It's only Vishnu is supreme. That is what's to be understood. But these arguments have come up before also. So there are some so-called Vedantic followers who actually tried to establish Shiva as supreme through the Vedantic process, but they were not successfully able to do so. So, this is the reference from in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he makes a point with respect to that. Now, this technical aspect of Narayana becoming Narayana was written probably to refute the claims of a Sampradaya or so-called Sampradaya which is called as Shaiva Vishishtadvaita, which is also called as Shaiva Advaita also. Okay, now this is an oxymoron. You cannot be a Shaiva at the same time Advaita. This is what we discussed now. But then they say that Shaiva Advaita philosophy we do have, which also is called as Shaiva Vishishta Advaita, which was propagated by a person called Shrikantha and Apya Dikshita. This is prominent in parts of Karnataka, and derivatives of this are prominent in Tamil Nadu also. Those who follow Shaivism here, they are all influenced by this particular thing. So in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Khanda, chapter 19, text 204, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he writes, he says, worshipping the demigods headed by Shiva while disregarding you is like watering the leaves of a tree after cutting its root. So this is a text that comes in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he writes in the commentary, being filled with pride and according to Vishishtadvaita philosophy. So Vishishtadvaita philosophy is Ramanujacharya's philosophy. The Shuddha Vishishtadvaita, the proper perfect Vishishtadvaita belongs to Ramanujacharya. But being filled with pride and according to Vishishtadvaita philosophy, being fallen from Vishnu's devotional service, Shrikantha, the current Shaivites like Apya Dikshita, Manikya Bhaskara, which I think Manika Vasagar is what he's talking about, and Jnaneshwara from the Lingayat Sampradaya, as well as the Acharyas of the impersonal school, have introduced a type of devotion to Shiva, yet because they have no knowledge of their constitutional position, that same Mahadeva does not accept their worship and more or less entangles them in the philosophy of impersonalism and thus dispels their propensity for worship. I'll just unpack this. What he's saying is a long sentence. What he's saying is that they are these different followers who have kind of corrupted the Shuddha Vishishtadvaita of Ramanujacharya, and they have come up with a type of devotion to Lord Shiva. Okay, because they're attached to Lord Shiva. I don't know how it came up, but not following the exact Vedantic process, they have introduced a type of devotion to Lord Shiva, and but they don't have knowledge of their constitutional position, that the same Mahadeva does not accept their worship and more or less entangles them in the philosophy of impersonalism. So there is a reference in Padma Purana where Lord Vishnu actually orders Lord Shiva to those who are of the demoniac tendency to entangle them in impersonalism through the way of Shiva worship. So maybe this is one of the reasons why those who are followers of Shankaracharya, they worship Lord Shiva more prominently than Lord Vishnu, because through the worship of Lord Shiva, actually Lord Shiva does not accept their worship and he entangles them into impersonalism. So those who are following the scriptures or those who are following the path of Advaita are more or less classified as demons here. Those are demoniac propensities, because those who are Suras are devotees of the Lord Vishnu. Those who are Asuras are Tadviparya, those who are against devotion to Lord Vishnu. So Asuras are actually those who are followers of this Advaita Vedanta according to Shastra. And one who worships Lord Shiva as supreme, then Lord Shiva actually entangles them in the philosophy of impersonalism and thus dispels their propensity for worship. Those who in the course of analyzing the signs of the energetic Lord, which establishes the temporary nature of Vishnu's partial manifestation, this material world, give up the service of Vishnu and worship the demigods headed by Shiva, who are in contact with matter, means those demigods who are in contact with matter and who belong to the external energy of Vishnu, do nothing more than uproot the tree while serving its leaves and branches. So again, this is stressing the same point which we already discussed. In this regard, one should discuss the verse beginning Yatha Taror Mula Nishechanena. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies demigods who are parts of the Supreme Personality. As well as the verses of Brahma Samhita that describe the distinction between the essential characteristics of Vishnu and those of 5 demigods. And Lord Shiva, this is Shiva speaking to Lord Vishnu. This is again Chaitanya Bhagavat, Antya Khanda, chapter 2, text 355. This is Lord Shiva speaking to Lord Vishnu. O Lord, somehow or other you have given me a false ego, and as a result I do not recognize anyone as superior to me. So even Lord Shiva, he becomes bewildered and sometimes think that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. that he can fight with Krishna and win also. We'll see reference. Banasura's fight with Krishna is very famous, and this in this particular section in Chaitanya Bhagavat, I think this comes when this Poundraka, I think it's Poundraka who dresses himself as Vasudeva, correct? So when he comes, then he's supported, he's helped by this Kashiraj, the king of Kashi, and both are defeated. Kashiraj, the king of Kashi, was also killed by Krishna, and again Poundraka definitely was killed by Krishna. So this Kashiraj's son, I think his name was Shatadhanva. Now he becomes a worshipper of Lord Shiva to defeat Krishna, and he performs intense heavy tapasya. And then when Lord Shiva appears to him, then he says that I want to defeat Krishna. Lord Shiva says, yes, chalo, let's do that. So he then empowers him, and then he starts fighting. This Shatadhanva, then he goes to fight with Krishna, and Lord Shiva also starts fighting. I don't exactly remember how it goes. It's been a long time since I read this, but I think he creates an entity, he creates a person who actually goes to fight with Krishna, and then but Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra, it starts from there, it kills that entity whom Lord Shiva created for helping Shatadhanva, it kills Shatadhanva also, and then it starts chasing Lord Shiva. Just like Sudarshan Chakra chased Durvasa all over the creation, similarly Sudarshan Chakra, he chases Lord Shiva also, and finally Lord Shiva falls at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu to save himself. And this text comes at that point. This is there in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So, and there he says, because you have given me false ego as the controller of false ego, sometimes, somehow or other, I do not recognize anyone as superior to me. So, he also is influenced. In commentary, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he writes, false ego is produced from the mode of ignorance. By the will of the Supreme Lord, the Gunavatara Mahadev is invested with the power of destruction. Therefore, the unauthorized philosophies propounded by the impersonalist Kashiraj, the commentator Shrikantha, so Kashiraj means Kashiraj and his son Shatadhanva, the commentator Shrikantha, who was a follower of the Shaiva Vishishtadvaita philosophy, and other impersonalists like Apyayi Dikshita have been completely refuted in the Shruta Prakashika commentary on Sri Bhashya by Sri Sudarshanacharya, the servant of Sri Ramanuja. So although these people, Shrikantha I think was the originator, and Apyayi Dikshita, he was his follower, although they tried to establish a Vedantic line with Shiva as supreme, but ultimately because they are worshipping Lord Shiva bewildered them so nicely that they ended up being impersonalists. So again, this Shiva, this Shaiva Vishishtadvaita or Shaiva Advaita, whatever they call, is also one form or a branch of Shankaracharya's Advaita philosophy only. So which basically means that all the Vedanta philosophy that anybody speaks about, he must come to the conclusion that Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Shiva cannot be established as the Supreme Lord at all. Right? So then there are references, so one can look into Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khanda, these are references, chapter 17, text 105, 107 and 112. So I'll just take one more minute, we'll just finish these references. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, it's mentioned the word Nara refers to the aggregate of all living beings, and the word Ayana refers to the refuge of them all. You are therefore the original Narayana. This is one reason. Please listen as I state the second. The direct lords of the living beings are the Purusha incarnations, but your opulence and power are more exalted than theirs. Therefore, you are the primeval Lord, the original Father of everyone. They, the Purushas, are protectors of the universes by your power. Since you protect those who are the shelters of all living beings, you are the original Narayana. So, basically, we discussed this entire discussion that we have been doing for the past 10-15 minutes. It started from this technical aspect, which this Nara and Ayana combined together becomes Narayana, because Rana basically suggests that he is a Supreme Lord himself. And here it's mentioned the Purushas, means all the three Purushas, Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu and Kshirodaksha Vishnu, are protectors of the universe by your power. The original Narayana was situated in the spiritual realm. Okay, so this is Vedanta Vagisha's commentary on Siddhanta Ratnam. So he gives several different aspects. He quotes from Vishnu Purana and he says, the waters that emanated from the Supreme Lord Nara in the beginning of creation are called Nara, right? The causal ocean. Because those waters became his resting place, Ayana, he is called Narayana. So Narayana refers to the original Narayana, the Supreme in the spiritual world, and it also refers to Karanodaksha Vishnu or Mahavishnu. In the Nrsimha Purana, it is also stated, verses there, The elements were born from the Supreme Person Nara in the beginning of creation. Therefore, the wise know them as Nara. Because those elements became his resting place, Ayana, he is called Narayana. Correct? When he enters into this material world. The word Narayana is an exclusive designation of Lord Vishnu on account of his entering either the waters of the causal ocean or the elements produced from him. The Supreme Person thus having both as his resting place. This is also understood from Panini's aphorism, as we saw before. In Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's mentioned, Narayanastvam nahi sarva dehinam atmasya adhishakhila loka shakshi Narayanongam narabhu jalayanat tachapi satyam natatvaiva maya. Are you not the original Narayana? This is Lord Brahma praying to Krishna. And he says, are you not the original Narayana, O Supreme Controller? Since you are the soul of every embodied being and the eternal witness of all created realms. Indeed, Lord Narayana is your expansion. And he is called Narayana because he is the generating source of the primeval water of the universe. He is real, not a product of your illusory Maya. So that is why he is called Narayana. And even if you go back a few pages back, we also saw this reference, from Narayana Upanishad, Narayana Brahma Jayate, Narayana Rudra Jayate. The word specifically Narayana is being used because of this reason, because he is the one who originates everybody. He is the one who is the supreme controller. And the Panini rule is applicable to this particular name, not to any other adjectives or any other common nouns. Okay, so we'll stop here. Tomorrow again, the same theme continues. We have several different references. We will see how Lord Shiva and Brahma originate from Lord Vishnu for fulfilling specific purposes. And from there on, we have several other topics also to discuss. So we'll stop here. Have any questions? Can take one question, maybe it's already quite late. Yes, bro.
Is this the reason why, so can it therefore be said that usages such as Daridra Narayana is actually grammatically incorrect because of that rule?
Daridra Narayana is a made up name, right? Narayana is the original name.
But it's like, is it being used in an incorrect grammatical way, like an adjective, like Shiva or something like that?
No, Narayana does have qualities. Of course, so with that word, with the Sangya Narayana, the transcendental qualities can be included. Okay, but the Narayana, that word itself, the Na becomes Hana, and this being a samasa, single word, therefore it's a Sangya. So in front of a noun, we can have several adjectives before and after. Correct? Now we can say a boy, or okay, he's a good boy, he's a bad boy, or he has these qualities. So that before that, adjectives can be added to a noun. But the noun itself, which arises from a samasa, where this particular rule is applicable, is this Narayana is an example of that. So it's a technical aspect, but adjectives can be added in front of it. So when we speak of Daridra Narayana, it's a corrupted version because they have added Daridra, whereas Narayana is the supreme lord of everything. Now we have been discussing that. So they are adding an incorrect adjective in front of a perfect noun. Okay, but then that does not mean that Narayan does not have qualities. He has perfect adjectives for the perfect noun also. Correct. So this Daridra Narayan is a useless, actually nonsensical term.
When explaining that aspect of Shiva and Brahma,
Yes.
as being, that they can be used as adjectives also.
Yes.
Could you give is there any example you can think of where Narayana has been used as an adjective incorrectly? It should not be done so.
Narayana being used as an adjective? No, I'm not aware of. I never not heard of it, but I think this is the whole point of the sutra itself, that Narayana cannot be used as an adjective because of this rule itself. Because this rule is applicable only to a sangya, only to a noun. So, if we are using Narayana as an adjective, which means the rule itself is not applicable there. And because the rule is being applied there, he cannot be used as an adjective. Or Narayana, the word, cannot be used as an adjective. Right? Whereas other Shiva and Brahma can be used as an adjective. Like that. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you so much. Shri Radha Damodar Goswami ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.